like everyone of my generation, YouTubers are basically the only thing I'd watch. And I'm kind of watching them kind of absolutely kill the social game and really build communities.
Welcome to Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their lives outside the business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, and mindsets, the disciplines, and the habits that make them successful in their lives, that leads to success in their business. Now, if you're interested in moving from corporate to setting up your own business, if you're interested in marketing and content creating, then today's guest is going to be right up his street. His name is James, and he's done all of these things and more, and we're going to discuss this in this podcast. So without further ado, hi James.
Hello. Lovely
How are
to be
you?
on. I'm good. I'm feeling positive today.
Good. That's how it should be. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you. If you can give a brief introduction to yourself, and then we can roll with the conversation from there.
Of course. So as you've lovely introduced, my name is James. Essentially, I've worked in both corporate and in agencies before in my career. Graduated 2018. And ever since, I've kind of been bouncing from job to job here and there, doing really well in each, but not feeling like I kind of belonged. And it's always because I kind of had ideas above my station a lot of the time. And I just felt like one thing should go one way and then something should go another. But there is structure involved in already existing businesses. So I spent time jumping from job to job on purpose, gaining different skills from each one. So it's probably been through about 4 jobs in marketing, working for the likes of Samsung, HSBC, B&Q, everything like that, with all of the end goal leading to this. So now out of lockdown, I used the chaos as the ladder approach to things, and I ended up starting my own social media marketing agency in the time like this where content is more important than ever, and podcasts like this are more important than ever. So it's good to be on, it's good to be sharing the love and actually just getting voices heard and being on an already existing professionals podcast, which is very nice.
Perfect. Now, James, something quite interesting. I just want to dive right into what you've just said there. Now, so we talk about content creating. You're talking about corporates and we're talking about small business, etc. Now, what gap did you find was missing from your corporate life, and what gap have you tried to fill with the new venture that you've started?
Well, just personally, the 9-to-5 lifestyle, especially in corporate, it really just kind of squashed my soul, if I'm honest with you. I'm not sure I think people are just, everyone's different in terms of like how they process the workplace and all the rest of it. But being in a massive corporate environment just made me feel suffocated and trapped in a cubicle, even though there were none. It was a very open plan. But that feeling wasn't for me, and all of the content they did. So my corporate background, I worked in the national advertising team and a certain company that I'm not sure if I should name or not, but whichever. And everything was very old school, TV, radio, print. But I worked opposite the social team. And then even though I could kind of see what they're doing from over the desk and always wanted to get involved, even the stuff they were making was always selfish instead of serving. So I just wanted to get on that point. Oh, hello, my mum's there. So I wanted to kind of change things up in terms of, because they're an existing company, they've been around for a while. Hello. It was always one of those cases where all they did was do stuff that was like, buy this, buy that, we've got a sale on this, even on their organic channels. And it's just not the way it should have been. Because no one cares, quite frankly. I don't care how big you are. If you say, hey, buy this new whatever, I don't care. No one cares.
Yeah.
You need to provide value, and providing value is such an ambiguous term now. People throw it around like anything. But translating value in terms of an individual company is something I've ended up being quite good at, but we can talk about that kind of stuff later. But yeah, corporate boxes weren't for me.
Cool. So you then decided, so what was it that, see, a lot of people have the idea that I'm working and I want to move into the path less trodden in terms of setting up your own business. But a lot of people, what they struggle with is an idea to work with, or something that they think that they can bring to the market and have enough, not just an idea, but having faith, not letting fear dominate their mindset. And then sometimes the security issues in terms of shifting from a paid career to potentially unpaid or sporadic pay type
Yeah.
career. And a lot of the time that's driven by passion, that's driven by purpose, that's driven by a want to create a dent in this universe that will help other people, and the money be the byproduct as opposed to the reason that you do it, right?
Mm.
So what was it that was in your mind when you stepped onto this path?
I think it was kind of spoiled for me early, the world of 9 to 5, because in uni, my second year university, the first company I did work experience for was a company called Virtual Umbrella. Shouts out to them; they're an amazing company. Virtual Umbrella, they were a two-man setup at the time. So there was Bertie and Samantha, the two that ran it, and it was just those two and me in a room. And they did virtual reality marketing for companies back then, and back in, it would have been 2017. That was kind of cutting edge stuff. But because entrepreneurship was my first taste of business, and those guys were, I think, around the same age I am now, I was like, oh no, I can't do this. If they can do it, so can I. And kind of my work path ended up being, okay, let me try the 9 to 5. Let me see if I can climb that corporate ladder and be the suited big shot that you see in all the TV shows. After week 1, no chance.
No way.
I felt so constrained and horrible all times. Even though everyone was super lovely, it was just the environment itself that somehow just had it in my mind that I couldn't be here. So I ended up kind of strategically choosing jobs to then get me skills to eventually break free. And obviously, I'd be, like everyone of my generation, YouTubers are basically the only thing I'd watch. And I'm kind of watching them kind of absolutely kill the social game and really build communities, which is another social word that's thrown around here, there, and everywhere. And everyone goes, oh, I want to provide value and build communities. I'm like, yeah, do you know how? By giving stuff away for free and sounding like a person. And the amount of companies that still aren't doing it, especially B2B, is ridiculous. So my purpose then became taking companies that think they can't and telling them they can, all because I had that first taste of entrepreneurship before I'd even graduated that kind of spoiled it for me. So there was no way I could kind of go back. But the way I made the jump is by being much more afraid of being trapped than I would be to take the risk to make the jump. And as soon as you have that switch and you give yourself no mental choice, that's when you kind of go, yeah, something's got to change and I'll make it happen no matter what, because I will not be put in that prison cell again.
And I guess doing it whilst you're young, when you have low overheads, when you have no real commitments as such, and that's those anchors can hold a lot of people down, right? So family, mortgage, kids, as life goes on, that's generally the way things sort of develop these days.
Yeah.
Now, you've done it at an ideal time. I remember when I started my first business when I was 22, 23 after university, and I came back home. So I was working corporate for 6 months, and then I came home to set up. And in those days, this will really sound really alien to you now, James. There was no Google. There was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was Yellow Pages. I don't know if you know what one of those is.
We've still got one somewhere.
Yeah,
but it's there.
Holding up a door somewhere probably. A Yellow Pages, a fax machine and a shop. That was your concept of a business, right? There was no online presence at all. Now, then it was you had to have some kind of physical space. So a shop was the space. Like now you'd have to have some kind of domain or something. Now that was a shop. And for me, being trapped, like you said, in the politics of an organization, which was what triggered my move to say, I'm not going to play this game, the game of having to get on with certain people just because they're head of this or head of that, or getting on with certain people to try and, raise yourself up the corporate ladder. And I just wasn't willing to play that game. I worked hard and I expected to be rewarded for hard work as opposed to playing that, the word game with people. Yeah. It wasn't for me. And I thought, if I'm going to set my own business up, what I want to do is set my own business up where hard work means something. So even if I employ people, as long as they're working hard and they're working for the bigger good, they don't have to suck up to me. If they need me to do something like get down and just wipe the floor while they're getting on with something, I'll do that. Because it's all about we, it's not about me, right? Yeah. And I wanted that to be the ethos of my business. So that's where it sort of grew. And I think it was the best move for me at that time. So like yourself, you'll look back now, hopefully in 10 years, 20, well, you're quite young, so 20 years plus, which is when you get to my age, you'll look back and think it's the best decision you made, because it's these decisions that you make now that then retrospectively build, and it's all these micro steps that you make now that will then build up to a life that hopefully is the life that you want without sort of having too many COVIDs in the way of that progress, right? Now, being in the situation we're in, a lot of people are stressed, a lot of people are agitated right now with the government, the coronavirus, and how everything is being handled. And as a business owner, I know a lot of businesses have been forced to close, and because a lot of eggs are in one basket, especially for these businesses, that's all their income done. And these guys have homes, they have kids, and they have a lot of stresses they're trying to deal with. Now, for you, being in a lockdown situation, I guess it's opposite, right? So you probably are thriving, if anything, because this is the space that they've pushed in terms of online. So what are you doing right now to try and help yourself or help other people?
So at the moment, to help others, there's just an open forum for anyone to kind of message me to talk about their content strategy. Because when everyone's been forced inside, your virtual business model is now number one most important, and it should be most important going forward anyway, because this kind of term and time of living isn't really going anywhere anytime soon. Zoom isn't going away, Microsoft Teams isn't going away, and it will always kind of be like this to a certain level, but you have the option to go outside. I think that's the way it's leaning. So there's a complete open forum to anyone can message me, and I'll do a content audit. So I'll kind of help any business of any size. If they can find me, they can message me. And I do a lot of that work on LinkedIn. But what we're doing for us at the moment is we're building a bank of content to then help cultivate and create that community, to kind of give out those little bits of nuggets that I would give away in a content audit, but just via videos. And that's how you kind of create a page worth coming back to, that actually gives you something good to look at and something that's worth it for your business. Because the most important currency online now is saves and shares. Probably go save, shares, comments, then likes. Those are the most important ones. Don't get it twisted. Don't get absorbed in your likes and your comments. Pointless, especially on LinkedIn downloads and on Instagram saves. If you're not doing things and you're not creating content to get those too, the algorithm will go, nah. Because especially on Instagram, after they introduced Reels, that's when they brought in the importance of saves. And companies that have been doing the same thing on Instagram, posting very similar stuff, they had a massive engagement drop and no one knew why. But the people putting out crazy valuable content and things like value-centered carousels, for instance, absolutely murdering it. So I'm trying to help open the eyes of businesses that think that they're ridiculously boring. Let's say if you're a cleaning business or if you do logistics. Oh, there's definitely things you can tell people, even if it's translating your frequently asked questions into something that's flipped and is serving to someone else. And that's what I'm kind of helping to do. I'm having hours of conversations with people completely for free, because it's the nice thing to do at the moment. And spreading that message is good karma back. The more you give, the more you get. And even now, I know that as a rule, and that rule, that what's it called, the art of attraction, or
the law of attraction.
It comes through, and I've already seen it happening already. So that's kind of where my head's at the moment.
And I think, James, what I like about your ethos, about what you've just spoken about, is you're using a skill which you have, which is understanding social, understanding the game, and having an interest in it, and then trying to flip that in its head and say, how can I help you with what I know? As opposed to saying, this is what I know, it's all locked up, and to get the key to the door, this is what it costs. And I think that old business model, which is when I started, that was the business model. No one wanted to give away anything. It was like, this will cost you this much, and you come and give this service, and we'll pay you for it. And it was very traditional, right? And I know now that there is no knowledge which can't be found.
There's so much trade secrets anymore.
There's so much right now. Content, there's so much. It's even myself. When for example, I had a leaking radiator. I have no clue about plumbing, but I went on YouTube, looked at a video, and literally did it myself. Yeah. Now, I know there's certain people that are not going to do that. We'll just pick up the phone, call a plumber, and that's cool. You've got the middle market, which is me, which will give it a go. And if I then feel like I don't want to do it, then I'll call someone. And you've got the third guy who will then take that idea of, I know plumbing, make the video, and then pull people in that way, right?
Yeah.
Now, if there's people listening right now, right, that have their own business, that are a bit old school. So I'm a bit old school in that way. So what I mean by that is my business is 20-year-old. We rely on existing customer recommendations, and it's smart home. So smart home setups technology, right? Now, In terms of content creation, I'm quite comfortable speaking and being a video, but I know a lot of people that have been in the game for a long time are not.
Yeah.
So, what kind of things can you do to serve them in terms of if they brought you on board, or if they said to you, here's my offering, this is what I do, what can you do for me? How does that conversation go?
So the first things first is completely understanding who you're talking to in their business model, right? Because the more you understand them as a person and their business model, the further you're going to get. The second thing is figuring out how they best communicate. So some people are amazing writers, but terrible on camera. Some people can't write worth a fart, like me, but can be on camera quite happily. And it's just about finding out how they communicate and then figuring out how you can turn that content into something that can build a community. Because these are free channels. I'm not sure people underestimate. I mean, many business owners, especially if their business has been going for a while, have social because everyone else has got it and they just post things obligatorily, let's say maybe twice a week or whatever. But you have a channel there completely for free that you can turn into something you could monetize by itself with the right care and attention. That's another income stream. Now, it seems like the impossible influencer thing to do, but it's really not that unattainable. And it's one of those things where I find out how you best communicate. We translate your knowledge into something that's worth it for others. Then we put that out there. And even though it's use all the weapons in your arsenal. Like if someone walked up to you and said, here's this thing completely for free that's got everyone in the world on it. There you go. But if it's not social or Google or anything like that, every business owner in the world would jump on it. I don't understand where business owners have suddenly gone, oh, it's probably not necessary to post a couple of times or whatever. This should be your main weapon to build brand, because that is the only way to do it moving forward. Because you don't want to spend money on TV. It's hard to track return on investment for one, ridiculously expensive too. Radio is a little bit cheaper, but again, how do you track who the hell's listening? With social, no matter if you're running ads or if it's just a free platform, the amount of data that you have and the amount of feedback you can get qualitatively from comments and all the rest of it is ridiculously worth it. So if you want to build brand, go hard on social. There's no excuse. So, I mean, I've been terrible with it because I've been sucked into how to actually run a business for the first time. But we're building a bank of content in the background to then lay out for months on end. And that's where people go wrong. You sit there at a screen going, what do I post? And that is the hardest thing to do. So make a content calendar, understand how you can flip whatever you're doing into something that's actually worth it for someone. And that's all there is to it. Really is.
Now, something you just touched upon there, you stepped out of the corporate game and you came into your own light. Now, you had some knowledge and you had a skill, like I said, and you want to bring it to market. Then you realize that the corporate organization you were working for, all the ones you worked for, all had human resources. They all had accountants. They all had these other things that run the business, and you did your part of that business. Now, this was your whole game, right? So you had to understand numbers. You have to understand all the things that go into business. What thing did you not see before you started that you realized that maybe I need to learn a little bit more about, or you're still trying to figure it out as now a business owner?
Logistics and cash flow is 100% the game. I'm terrible with maths as a person anyway. I've got a creative brain, so it's hard to get me to stop and sit down and then look at actually, right, okay, we've got this much coming in, we've got this much going out in terms of softwares and employee pay and all that stuff. And then we're projected to go this far. I was lucky my auntie's an accountant, so she could have given me some advice on this stuff, because I was lost in the beginning. And things like insurances that you just don't know that you need until you're like, oh yeah, I should probably get some of those. Or the decision to stay sole trader or to go limited, where the tax benefits. And that's what I've been in the recent loop of learning. But now I've kind of almost come out the back of that now. And now it's a case of right now that's all taken care of and I have a system for that. Now let's get back on the content trail, and that's what we're doing now. So it's the stuff they don't teach you in school, but it should be the first thing you learn, in my opinion, how the hell taxes work, how to set up a business. But, they'll never do that because they want us to be good worker bees, conspiracy hat on. So it's just one of those things where I wish I'd have been taught it, but I hadn't. And luckily I've managed to find people around me that did know a bit. So yeah, the logistics.
Yes. And quite a few things you mentioned there, because I think most people going into business would be in a similar boat to you. So I understood how to serve customers. I understand retail. But then when, like you said, I had to learn numbers and spreadsheets. Lucky my dad had a business beforehand, so I saw what he used to do, like VAT and things like this, which, like you said, we should be taught at school. Money management, we should be taught at school. I got into a lot of trouble with money when things sort of became really busy. And it felt like I was juggling money from left and right hand, but I didn't actually know where it was going. It was just coming in so quick that it didn't really matter. It's only when it slowed down that I was like, it's still coming out the exhaust pipe just as quick, but it's not coming in the fuel tank just as quick. So that's when it's in those moments that I guess you learn the most about yourself and about, the situation you're in. Now, moving forward, social media changes so quick. Something new happens, something quick moves on. And someone who's not so much into it, so like myself, you painted me in your picture of a traditional business owner just then, right? So we post once or twice a week. We put down, because we do a lot of install work, so it's more like a portfolio of our work and what kind of smart home installations we're doing with the brief insight, and that's it. That's our social sort of presence, if I say. Now, the reason that I would give you that I don't create more content is I choose not to use my time doing that, because what I'm finding is that we're getting so much work coming in through because we are quite niche in what we do, that it's almost like I thought it's not necessary. Now, I guess I'm resting on my laurels, assuming it's always going to be good, and any investment I make now is going to be a good investment in terms of social, because I know that's everything the way it's going. We're still retail based, and that may change. So if that changes, then we're not going to have that. Yeah. So how can you change my mind to make it an investment I start doing right now to make sure the future still looks bright and rosy as it is right now?
So I assume you get a healthy amount of traffic through to your website, yeah? And they always say your website is your biggest conversion tool. If someone finds you online, they've got two ways to verify if you're an actual business or not just a random website that's trying to scam you out of money. Website and socials. If they see a website that looks great and then socials that aren't paid attention to or barely posted in, they get a bit wary. So it is your second conversion tool and your main way to build brand. So when I think of stuff for smart home, there is an abundance of content that you could be making. It could be as simple as putting together like a couple of bullet points, let's say, and translating them into PDFs for LinkedIn or for a carousel for Instagram. And it could be top 5 smart light bulbs. It could be, and it doesn't matter if you're branded ones or anything like that, showing there's a portfolio of stuff there, top 5 LED strip lights, how to create the gamer effect in your room, how to control your heating from anywhere. And it's all these how-tos and the stuff that's completely flipped towards a customer that then will encourage the save. Now, imagine if you gave away 10,000 flyers that are physically in someone's home. That is a massive plus for you, because whenever someone thinks smart home, they think your brand. And this is exactly what we're trying to do with the save game. So can
I just stop you 1 second there? Now, you keep talking about saves.
Yes.
Now, physically explain a save to me, because I'm still not even getting that, to be honest.
Okay, so on Instagram, let's say you've got comments, likes, share, and on the right, you can save someone's content.
Okay.
So someone scroll past your social media post and go, that's so good, I have to save that for later.
Right.
So I can send it to someone else.
Yes, got you.
And on LinkedIn, you can go through and download a PDF.
Yeah.
So it's almost like people are physically taking away your brand. They're not only seeing it, they scroll through it, but they're taking it away with them. That is another level of consumer engagement, which is very similar, if not a full conversion, like in the eyes of branding and social. And it's the most important thing to do. So when you say change my mind on social, I say it's your second most important conversion tool, because people will waver to get in contact with you or buy something from you if your socials aren't up to scratch. Right. And the thing is, it isn't going anywhere. It's not like business is good at the moment, which the resource is the only reason social doesn't get made, which is why companies like mine exist, right?
Yeah.
And I've been terrible for it myself for making my own socials. But when I tell you it's the most important thing going forward now, and you having this podcast is amazing, and it's so much more than most other people are doing, that companies are hard to grow on social because no one wants to follow a company. I know you don't go on social media much, but how many companies do you follow for fun when you're at home?
None, I think.
Yeah, as soon as you ask any business owner that, they go none. So I'm like, cool, let's make yours one. Then you're the only one. And then as soon as you go, wow, yeah, because let's say like your business, so for instance, smart home, want to be one of the first smart home people companies on TikTok, because you've got amazing stuff to impress visually and to really give this Tony Stark vibe. I'm not sure if it's on the corporate level or it's on the consumer level, but imagine filming that kind of stuff, building an audience on TikTok. Now you're the first smart home brand who's dominated TikTok. Do you know how rare it is to be first anymore?
Yeah.
So when more boring businesses start doing things they're not supposed to, that is disruption. And when you go, all right, yeah, you can be the first, that's when it starts to twig. That's when you're like, okay, I have ridiculous potential. And so do you.
Right. Now, moving forward, so you've set up this business, and obviously it's in early stages and you're growing and you're developing, right? What are the biggest hurdles you see for your business over the next few years that if you pass them and you outgrow them, then there's really going to be sort of an open road that you can sort of roll down?
Sure. I think the main thing that I've seen so far is scaling in terms of employee resource and managing a virtual team. I'm used to managing an in-person team back from my corporate career just before I left and in agencies. And now I'm in a place where I've got one physical team member, which is my sister that I brought on part-time, and we're looking at bringing on someone virtually. And it's kind of one of those models where can you really communicate properly and kind of nurture a team properly over Zoom? Or is it you have to hire someone that knows what they're doing first, so when you can just assign them something via a video call, stay in contact regularly, but they're getting it done. It's going to be, for us, it's obviously as a growing company, we have to start small. We can't just hire someone who's a head of marketing somewhere because we don't have the resource. So how do you grow efficiently in a time where working from home is now the most important thing? And we've only just got a physical space. We're in a 3-person office now. But do I try and scale virtually? Do I try and scale in person? And how much of your talent and what's your talent pool going to be like in terms of that balance? And that's what I'm trying to figure out at the moment, is looking at that cash flow and stuff once again and going, right, how much can we afford? Is it worth blowing a good margin of profit in the moment to get someone who really knows what they're doing to scale, or maybe 1 or 2 people who are at the same level as, let's say, a couple of years below me, for instance, and then we go with the resource part and we can nurture them. And that's the kind of problem I'm struggling with at the moment. But I think it's going to be trial and error at the end of the day. We'll just have to see what happens and grow as a company, and at the end of the day, see what happens, because big risk, big rewards.
And I think it's always worth remembering that no decision is a wrong decision, because the only outcome is win or learn. So if you don't win, you're going to learn that it wasn't the right decision at that time, but you need to make that decision to know it's not the right decision if that makes sense, right? So always, sometimes we can go into analysis paralysis where we overthink lots of things and then you end up doing nothing, or you end up doing things too late when it should have been done earlier, right? Always trust your own intuition, always your gut, because your gut will always speak the truth. But also draw upon times when you felt that, I know trusting myself, I'll always be okay. Irrespective, even if your brain tells you one thing, your gut will always tell the truth. Coming back through the numerous mistakes I've made in business, coming out the other side, I think the 3 things that have stuck with me, quite simple, which I can try and help you with, is as a business, I live by 3 things. One is do what you say you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and if there's a problem, sort it out. Those 3 things. If you can get those 3 things continuously right, there is no reason for anyone to go anywhere else. Because in terms of me as a person, if I take on someone, so if I took on you, the first thing I say is that, do you overpromise and underdeliver? That's the first thing I'd notice, because that's one thing I can't stand, and you probably the same. If you say you're going to do it, when's that going to be done by? Because now unfortunately, we live in a very time-pressured society, especially when it's in business, that things are very, time-orientated. So that's another thing. And then mistakes happen. Shit does hit the fan occasionally, and that's cool. It's how you respond to that shit hitting the fan. So then if I say, James, this is ballsed up, you'll be like, okay, we didn't realize that was going to happen. Now, what we'll try is we'll do this. And if we come out the other side and it's actually all right, I'm actually going to trust you more, even though shit's hit the fan, right? Because you've tried to help, you've been honest about it, and you've not hidden behind closed door. The other thing is, I hate when, say, for example, plumber ballsed up my piping, and then he doesn't pick up his phone. You're like, you've taken the money and now you're not interested, right? And that's another thing. And irrespective of what you think in terms of the tradesman may think, oh, I just don't want to deal with this. Eventually it will come back to you. Eventually I will tell enough people, or the universe and karma will come back to you, that money that has been taken from me will come back to me and will be taken from you. So that's just a old head talking to a young head. Keep the faith in what you're doing. And there'll be times when it's difficult. There'll be times when you question, why the hell did I even start this? But they're the times that when you get through them, you'll look back and say, that's what grew me as a person. Because every moment that there's hardship and every moment there's struggle, they're the times you have to think and outgrow what you know already, right? So you mentioned that you work with your sister, is it? Is that right?
Yep, she's in the back desk back there.
Oh, perfect. So how is that in terms of family and business?
Oh, it's always interesting. There's always lots of laughs going on in here, I'll tell you that. But yeah, she's 16, so it's given her kind of her first role. She's working with me for a year before she goes to college, and it's one of those things where it just kind of matched up at the right time. And obviously, her being 16-year-old, well versed in social already, so it's just a case of then instilling the basic marketing principles and the reason why we're doing what we're doing to certain clients. And she's really got the hang of it really fast, and it's been a good dynamic so far. It's just in terms of how we scale past the family element.
I was going to say, and how then do you, when there may be, maybe not right now, but say there's any aggravations or issues at work and things happen and you don't agree with each other, at what point does that stop at the door and doesn't come home?
So far it's been pretty amicable, but I assume it's literally just going to be a case of, this is still a place where as soon as we leave the door, then we can argue about stupid stuff all we like, but while we're here, it's all business to a certain point. I'm trying to get rid of the kind of frosty business element of things with not just the internal workings, but with clients as well. I have a very personal relationship with all of the clients that I bring on, and I've noticed the clients we haven't gelled with, which has only been one or two initially, and you can kind of tell from initial talks, are ones that kind of aren't up for that actual initial connection. And the reasons why we do what we do, they're just after social posts because they don't really care. And in that, we're not looking to work with people like that. We're looking to work with people that understand the real value of what we're trying to do and the potential that they have. So it's been something we've both discovered together and working on different accounts. So yeah, it's always interesting working with family.
I think that was music to my ears when you said that, in terms of sticking to what you believe. There are times when money signs may come up and you're like, shall we? It may pull you off your course because you feel it's a good deal, and then you realize later it probably wasn't. The other thing is where we've had clients, and one thing exactly what you said there, it's when you get that interaction with someone and you know this person's going to be good to work with, may not be the best financially or may not be the best as a sort of bigger picture, but I know it's going to be good for both parties, and I know it'll be good for my business and their business also.
Yeah.
Then you've got the other type of client which may potentially give you a big contract, but there's no interaction, there's no real person. It's like you said, just want to get a job done and see you later, irrespective of who does it. And I found that the most long-term business comes from the first type, which is the interaction. They like you. I want James to do my work. That's it. If it's going to take him longer, I don't mind waiting. If it means that we have to adapt certain things, I don't mind because I know he's good at what he does. The second guy would, if you can't do James, never mind. I'll pick up the phone to someone else. And that's where as a business, you're never going to grow with that kind of client. So taking a step back and saying, does this work for me or does this client work for me? And if their answer is no, then just walk away comfortably, irrespective of what the finance is, because you will gain the clients and you will build the business. Because, or like I said, my business is mainly existing customers and recommendations now. And we're blessed with that because we've looked after those people all their lives. So, not just them, but their kids now and their kids, right? So it's that interaction, which sometimes, like we had one old lady that she was near our shop and she goes, oh, can you just pop in? I can't tune my TV. And I was like, well, my car's parked near that. I don't really want to go. So I was like, let me just pop in. I don't know why. I said, let me just help. I've got this thing about old people in need. So I was like, okay, let me just pop in. And she goes, how much? I haven't got much money. I said, don't worry, I'll just pop in and just do it for you. Fine. So I just went in, popped in, and her son was there. So I tuned in and he was like, oh, where have you come from? And we got talking and stuff. And he's like, I've got some work, a renovation work that I'm doing at my house. I didn't realize you guys were there. So if you won't mind coming and checking it out and then give me a quote for that, I go, fine. So we went there and it ended up turning to be like a 20K contract. And I was like, that was from just saying to the old lady that I'll come and tune your TV, it's fine.
Yeah, doing the right thing.
Yeah, and you will see that continuously. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to the head, but in your heart, actually, I have to do this. I have to help somehow. And doors will always open because I trust the universe. The universe needs people like us, needs people that are helping because they want to help, not because they feel there's another outcome or something else is going to happen because of it. There are times when you may think like this, but trust yourself and trust your intuition. So, James, as we head over to the end of this conversation, what I want to do is just ask a couple more questions so people understand a little bit more about you and the way you think, so that you get a real picture of whether they would like to work with you in the future or if they just like you as a person, just to get to know, right? So we've reached the end of your days now. For you, this is like an alien concept, right? So we're talking 150 years into the future. You've done everything you want to do. You've interacted. You've built a new social network online and you've dominated the world. So we've done all those things, right? Now we've reached the end of your days where you don't have enough energy to speak, but you have a pen to write 3 words. Those 3 words have helped you in your life so far, and you hope they will help other people that are listening. What would those 3 words be for you?
Bloody good question. Philosophical, no? I'd have to say will would be one of them. Like that has been one of the driving forces of why I've done what I've done. I've almost been willing myself to end up getting out of whatever situation I was in that didn't make me happy. So will would be one. Passion would probably be another one, stereotypical as it sounds. You have to give monkeys, otherwise no one else is, as eloquent as that is. And kindness, because just like when you find someone that you gel with as a client, it's kindness that opens doors, as you said. So it's one of those things where if everyone kind of adopted a little bit more kindness in business, I think the world would go around a bit smoother. So yeah, those would be my 3.
Perfect. And quite mature words for such a young man. So I see a bright future in you already.
No, thank you.
Now, this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So I've got this mic and it's connected to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can hear what you're saying, they understand your language, they're not asleep, they're conscious, and there's no barrier to understanding what you're saying. If I gave you 30 seconds on this mic, what would your message be to the world?
I'd say it wouldn't be about me, it'd be about them. Put your message out to the world. Make everything that can help someone else, regardless of whether it be for business or whether it be for a personal passion. Whatever you think of, flip it for who will be at the other end. Just like in this conversation, we want to make sure that everyone can hear it, but it's for everyone else. And that's all I've ever done in terms of what we do here. And that's what I hope more people do. Because if everyone's content was flipped to the end consumer, I know a lot of people are amazing at it already, the world would really change. And social would be so much more useful. And so would basically everything else. So make things for others, not for yourself. And that would be my message.
Brilliant. Now, at this juncture, James, I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for giving up your
me.
precious start time to talk here today. I'm going to put all your links up in the show notes. If anyone does want to contact you, they can do and communicate with you. Is there anything you'd like to say just before we go?
No, not really. No, I mean, if anyone's curious about how they can kind of change up their content and kind of make things a bit easier, and again, just like that passage from before, make everything focused on whoever's supposed to be at the other end, just drop me a message. We can have a quick call. I'll just go through all your socials with you on the phone. Just be like, if you did that, we could do that and see how the world changes, right? And don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Please don't. Just start making something. Just like this podcast, you can make it on Zoom, you can make it on Anchor. Just do anything, have a positive and authentic conversation. The more normal a conversation is, the better. So be authentic and be normal, everyone, because everyone likes that. It's relatable. So yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been much appreciated.
No problem at all. Thank you. And I always listen back to myself during the end of these podcasts, and sometimes I think, oh my God, you sound like this and you sound like that. And I find that the people that listen, they say, but that's you. They're the quirks that make you who you are. So that's what we need to hear, because that's who you are in real life. And because my opinion of myself now is higher than anyone's opinion of me, I'm not afraid to be myself. And I know a lot of people aren't in that position, and I'm blessed to be in that position. And that's why starting things like this and trying to bring people like you up and lift you up to share the light, I think is so important, especially now when we are still in quite a stressful time with lockdown as well, that we can try and lift the mood a little bit and show that there is positivity out there with people like us. So thank you so much, James, again for your time. Now, thank you everyone for listening to this podcast. Just before you go, just a few thoughts. Big energy leads to big thoughts lead to big ideas lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. And so keep thinking big. Until next week, goodbye.
Even a smile is an act of charity. That's actually in the faith. A smile is an act of charity, and it is, because if you smile, that smile goes forward and forward and forward and forward and forward.